Good evening and welcome to this episode of Hunt's Corner Hunter. This is going to be part 5 of our How to Turkey Hunt series. And tonight we're going to focus on wild turkey biology and how you can use that biology to be an effective turkey hunter. This is a very complicated topic, and there are whole books that have been written on the subject. In fact, I'll talk about a book at the end of this video. So I'm not going to go into an obscene amount of detail about this. I want to give you just enough knowledge of turkey biology so that you can be an effective hunter. I believe you need to know a little bit about what's going on with turkeys at this time of year in order to be an effective hunter. And with that little bit of knowledge, I think you'll kill more turkeys. This time of year is the turkey's breeding season, so it's kind of a corollary to the deer's rut that they have in the fall. Only difference is most birds do have their breeding season in the spring. So just like a buck does in October, November, you've got to use that gobbler's breeding pattern in order to get up in his vicinity and be able to get a shot at killing him. The spring season in most states, including Georgia, I break down into 3 different periods of time. And the turkey's behavior during those periods of time changes from one to another. And those changes are important. If you don't understand what's going on in each period, it can make hunting a lot more difficult. In the first phase of the spring breeding season, which for Georgia runs from about early to mid-March through the end of March. If you're in Florida, this time period is going to come a little bit earlier. If you're in Kentucky or points further north, it's going to come a little bit later. But these periods of time do exist in all areas. You just got to figure out which period you're in at any particular time in your area. So here in Middle Georgia, for example, right now it's March the 7th. We're just getting in to the first phase of the spring turkey breeding season. At this time of the year, the turkeys, the gobblers, are beginning to gobble in the morning. You will hear a lot of gobbling at this time of the year. This is the first of the 2 peaks of gobbling. The turkeys have not established their breeding areas yet, but they're starting to. And the big gobbler flocks that have existed since last summer are starting to break up into smaller and smaller groups. The hens at this time will move from their fall territory to their spring territory. The gobblers begin to establish these little areas where they will hang out and gobble and strut. Biologically, they're called lets, but we just call them little strutting areas or gobbler's territory. At this time of year, if you get onto a gobbler early in the morning, first thing, sometimes you can work him into gun range and kill him. They will occasionally have hens with them parts of the day, maybe first thing in the morning, maybe beginning of the afternoon, but it's not as consistent. And this can be good hunting. I won't say it's great hunting, but it is a good time. And a lot of turkeys are killed in the first few weeks of the season. The second phase of the spring season runs from about April 1st through the middle of April. During this time, the gobbler has established his territory. When the morning starts, he will get up, he will gobble on the roost. He will call all of the girls in his flock to him, and when they have all gathered around the base of the tree he's roosted in, he will fly down to them. They will begin to feed and wander, and he will strut and display and follow along behind them. Any hens that are in season at this time of year, he will breed. This is the hardest period to turkey hunt in because the gobbler's going to stay in that tree until his hens show up. When they show up, he's going to fly down and he's going to stay with that flock of hens all day long. This is an incredibly difficult time because you're not going to be able to call that gobbler away from those hens. Your strategy at this time of year has to be centered around finding out where that flock of hens and turkeys is going, get in front of them, and go from there. You may have to get in front of them and just sit there and hope they come by you and try to ambush one. You may be able to do some soft clucking and purring and bring that flock of hens with the gobbler in tow by you. But this is an incredibly difficult time of the year to hunt. If you haven't got on him and gotten in his vicinity by lunchtime, you're really wasting your time to hunt in the evening. Although, if you can hang out there till late evening, you can sometimes find out where the flock is roosted at and be in that vicinity first thing in the morning. But in general, if you don't get on him very quickly, you're in trouble. It's very difficult to call that flock in your direction, and that gobbler is not going to leave that flock of hens. You may be able to pick up a satellite or secondary bird at this time of year, one who has not established himself as dominant bird, and you may be able to call him in to you. But more than likely, these satellite birds are going to come in quietly. He's not going to gobble and carry on and get the big boy's attention. He's going to come in quietly and try to get him a piece on the side, as it were. This carries us through about the middle of April when we enter the third phase. And this phase runs from about April 15th through the end of turkey season. At this time, the turkeys undergo a major transformation. This is where the third period is where the second peak of gobbling happens, as far as I can tell. The hens go from spending just a couple of hours sitting on the nest each morning to spending most of the day sitting on the nest. The gobbler will gobble heavily from the roost, and he will call some hens to him, but they will leave fairly quickly and go off and sit on the nest. At this time of year, from about 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning on through the rest of the day, that gobbler doesn't have any hens with him. So he starts to ramble and look and wander around and cover territory, trying to find a hen that still needs to breed. To me, this is the best time of year to hunt turkeys. If you can find a gobbler in the last 2 weeks of April by himself in the middle of the afternoon, you have got a fantastic shot of calling that bird up to you and killing him. And in truth, I have killed probably 75 to 80% of the turkeys I've killed in the last 2 weeks of April, because those hens are breaking off and going to spend more and more time sitting on the nest. So the gobbler is by himself much of the day. What I like to do this time of year is to try to shock gobble a turkey into gobbling to me. You do crow calls, do owl calls, things like that, and see if you can get him to gobble. Sometimes you can do some loud cutting and yelping to get his attention. But understand, this time of year, because of the way the foliage is. So opening week of turkey season, you're going to have some leaves, but not a lot on the trees. And you can hear a gobble from a long ways off, and he can see you from a long ways off. He can hear you very well. By the time you get the end of April, every tree is in full leaf. If you hear a turkey at this time of year, he's a whole lot closer than you think he is. And if he gobbles at you, he can be on top of you before you know it. And frequently that's going to happen. If you go along in the afternoon, you make a loud series of yelps, you go bah, 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 and cackle, and he fires off a gobble at you, you better be ready to sit down, shut up, get your gun up, and get ready to shoot, because he could be there in under 2 minutes. So this time of year, I don't make a sound until I've looked around and said, okay, if I'm walking through an area, let's say I'm traveling, I'm looking for one of these gobblers. Before I call, I look around. Is there somewhere I can set up? Is there somewhere I can get set up quickly and be in the shade and be concealed? Then I will make my call. If he answers, I'm going straight to that spot, sit down, shut up, and be ready, because he's probably already on his way. Some of these come in under 2 minutes. I've had turkeys this time of year. You call, they answer. I sat down, I got the gun up on my knee, and next thing you know, the bird walked into view. It's that fast. And this is when it can be exciting, and I've killed more turkeys for this time of year than any other. You can still call some up in the morning, not saying you can't. And as you get later and later in the season, and he's got fewer and fewer hens with him, sometimes you can get on him first thing in the morning and call him to you. But this, I think, is probably the best time of year to call up a mature tom. That last period from about the 15th of April, let's say tax day, on through the end of the season, whatever that may be in your area. Again, depending on where you are latitude-wise, if you're further south, these dates are going to come a little earlier. If you're up in the north, they're going to come a little later. And indeed, sometimes you don't hit the second peak in North Georgia until, say, early May. So just kind of learn what's going on in your area. That's all the biology I really want to go into. That's enough to help you go out there and plan your strategy around what the turkeys are doing at that time of year. If you want to know more, there's a lot of books, and you can see I've got books all over here behind me on the shelves that talk about turkey biology. My personal favorite is this one. It's Wild Turkey Hunting and Management by Lovett Williams Jr. Mr. Williams is no longer with us. He passed away a few years ago, but the book, I believe, is still available on his website, and I will try to put a link to that in the description of the video below. If you can't find it there, you can probably find it on eBay or Amazon or some of the other book retailers. I highly recommend, if you want to know more, look at that book. If you can't find a copy of it, if you can't buy one, beg, borrow, or steal one. But I highly recommend you read it. Mr. Lovett Williams specialized in turkeys. He studied turkeys and did radio collaring and studies on them down in Florida. So whatever he says, you take it as gospel. It's good information. Well, we're more than halfway through the series now, and I hope you're getting something out of it, judging by the number of views I'm seeing. This is good information. So thank you all if you've watched. In our next video, we're going to talk about locating turkeys and scouting for turkeys. And until that time, thanks for watching.